Today on Valley News for Wednesday, May 18th, we'll tell you what happened at this week's Cache Creek Village Council coverage from the Bonaparte Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's event, and Cache Creek CAO Damien Couture and Councilor Wendy Coomber attended the SILGA event in Salmon Arm last month. They'll share on what they saw at the event and how big ideas can help build small communities like Cache Creek. Welcome to Valley Watch. I'm your host, Dana Foster. Valley Watch is a news segment on Valley News to share what is happening in rural and Indigenous communities in the Gold Country region. Today, we are in Cache Creek, where we will go over the key highlights from the Cache Creek Village Council on May 16th. We will be digging deeper into a few stories and we'll share them with you as they unfold. But first, CAO Damien Couture and Councilor Wendy Coomber attended the 2022 SILGA convention. Valley TV spoke with Councilor Coomber about the event.
So late in April, we attended the Southern Interior Local Government Association annual conference in Salmon Arm. And part of that annual conference is they take us on tours in different cities wherever they're holding the conference. And this year it was in Salmon Arm, and they took us to a couple places, the Innovation Center and the Zest Food Hub for their tours. And areas, and for Cache Creek, that would be a great bonus if we could access either one of those or even both. But the Innovation Center is actually, I'd describe it more like an idea hub. It has a lot of, it's a building that has office space, it has meeting rooms, it has a great maker space in the basement, places for all sorts of people to meet, come up with great ideas. And eventually they can meet with mentors. Eventually they hopefully inspire those people to start creating marketable items. We feel we have a problem with internet capability and possibly even electricity output in Cache Creek, and perhaps creating a small core of businesses. People who want to start high-tech businesses would put a little bit of pressure on our service providers to actually upgrade the service that we have. So I think it would be a win-win situation for everyone. This village has been trying to attract high-tech companies for quite some time now. And, for whatever reason, we haven't been totally successful up until this point. But I think that if we could show our service providers that we actually have people who want to use that and create business, that we could get a little further with them in increasing our services. The food hub was likewise a building with many offices for people who wanted to produce their own local food product. These are certified. They meet all standards of government regulations and commercial kitchens, all the way from sausage making to cookie making to, as manager of the Cache Creek Market, I have vendors who often ask me if I know of any certified commercial kitchens in the area, because they would like to up their standard of the food that they produce. And up until now, we really don't have anything, but we're surrounded by market gardens and gardens in general, and people who want to make food. And something like this would help them put their product out to more food events and even put their product on the shelves of our stores. And, I just think it would be awesome for our food producers to show the area or even, the rest of the province what great things that we can produce here in Cache Creek. There was also a really good workshop on climate change and health, and they were talking about the extreme heat that we can expect, such as what we experienced at the end of June last year. And the need for cooling centers. Now, we did have a cooling center in Cache Creek last year. I believe it was a request from the Bonaparte First Nations that we return our community hall into a cooling center. Unfortunately, the first day that we opened as a cooling center, our air conditioning seemed to fail, and it was quite hot. We fixed it after that, but when I brought it up at council the other night, my feeling was that if we could prepare before this happens, because last year, let's face it, I mean, nobody expected it to get that hot here, really. So if we had known, we probably would have beforehand checked our systems to make sure that they were functioning up to snuff. And I noticed on Facebook around the same time, there were a lot of people asking if anyone had air conditioners for sale or to give away, or if they knew of any people who serviced air conditioners because theirs wasn't working. So it caught a lot of people by surprise. And I would I just suggested that council or that staff remind people before we get into that situation again that they need to or they should have their air conditioners serviced, or find alternative cooling places that they can go to. The folks that I talked to at the conference who did have cooling centers suggested that the centers that had activities or distractions for people attracted more than the ones that were simply you go and sit and be cool. So, if we could provide a few board games, magazines, maybe a TV, the cost would be, I think, pretty minimal, but the benefits would be very great. And I say this as a councillor wishing to protect the folks, the people, the population of Cache Creek, just with a friendly reminder to be ready. And if you need help, then hopefully we can provide it via a cooling center.
CAO Damien Couture followed up with his comments to say that there were some great ideas around a food hub and an innovation hub, and he was really interested in a workshop put on by Sam Samadar of the Kelowna International Airport on how rural communities can better utilize airports.
A large portion of the conversation was about how to get big carriers into your area, but a question came up: what do small communities like us do? Because we don't have the intent to get an Air Canada and a WestJet terminal here. It doesn't really make sense. As much as we like to think that we're a destination, I don't think we're enough of a destination yet to have a carrier like that bringing 500 people at a time 3 times a day to us. So how do we kind of get involved in that industry? And the idea that came about is really creating that balance. He expressed that there's a huge need in the aviation industry right now for pilots. At the beginning of COVID, there was an abundance, but the problem is kind of 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of the big players in the aviation industry realized that a lot of the talent, like the career pilots, were going to be aging out in 5 to 10 years. So now we're at year 5, where it's starting to become a problem. So yes, people are being rehired for COVID, but they've done that and they still don't have enough pilots. So these flight centers and schools are scrambling to be able to increase enrollment, but the problem that's being encountered kind of on the airport side and then also on the flight center or on the flight school side is if you have a flight school at a fairly busy airport, you interrupt kind of the other day-to-day operations of the airport. Not that they can't accommodate it, it's just easier for everybody involved if you're somewhere quieter. So if you look at the opportunity of having some sort of a housing solution, be it private or public, like I'm not necessarily saying that the village has to own or operate this. Maybe there's a member of the public that wants to build a hangar at the airport and wants to have 6 apartments in it or something, right? But just really us being open to listen, that if those kind of questions come to the table or if those opportunities come up, it's not as crazy and an outlandish idea as we think, because it makes sense for those organizations to lease those spaces to be able to fly their students here and utilize them. A flight school in Kelowna, well, a 3-hour drive for us is not a 3-hour flight. And even if it was a 3-hour flight, that's 3 hours flying time for a student. So it's not a crazy outlandish idea. And so it's just something that we have to be aware of, keep it in the back of our minds. And if the opportunity arises, maybe we jump on it.
So the question is Cache Creek ready for innovative ideas? You tell us. From the top 3 topics discussed at SILGA 2022, what do you think we should consider bringing to Cache Creek? A food hub with a commercial kitchen, a innovation center with space for technology entrepreneurs, or a airport hangar with residential space for flight students? Or maybe you have an idea for yourself. You can comment down below.
And I feel like this could be a matter of opinion. I've lived here 30 years, and I feel that Cache Creek is open to the idea of change. Now, change isn't necessarily, a lot of people are open to the idea, but when it starts happening, it can be a bit controversial. So I guess my thing to say from the perspective of this office is, if somebody notices something that's different or different ideas, or if they have an idea themselves, don't be afraid to bring it up with other people. And if an idea is being presented to council, or you're hearing an idea in the community about something new, like an example is last night at the council meeting, council approved in concept a second cannabis retail location for Cache Creek. 10 years ago, well, it was illegal. You couldn't even do that. So that's a very big change for the community, having not 1, but 2 potential locations opening up with selling that kind of a product. So having, and we still don't know how that's going to play out, but what I would encourage people to think of is, if you have a crazy idea, don't be afraid to talk about it. And if you hear a crazy idea, give it the time of day, listen to it, and think it through. Don't just have the off-the-cuff reaction. Take some time and think about it, because some of our neighboring communities have already done some very interesting ideas. And when I say neighboring, that can also mean communities kind of not just Ashcroft and Clinton, but like, for example, SILGA this year was in Salmon Arm, and seeing how they're doing things that are very different than the norm, and how it's really working for them as a community to really build that local talent. It was really inspiring to see. And it's very interesting, because you see some of these things like the Innovation Center and the Food Hub that are, you just look at it and you say, this could work in our community. Like, Salmon Arm is literally 20 times the size of us, but we could have a facility like this and make it work just based on our demographics. So it's not, some of these ideas aren't as crazy as people think. So just giving it the chance.
Complaints from the community of increased speeding on Stage Road and Quartz Road. Conversations were discussed last night about what can be done about the speeding. In the meeting, CAO Damien Couture said that he's spoken with officials about putting up signage, but that it would not help. However, adding painting parking lines and adding bike lanes to our streets would be cost effective and would assist with drivers slowing down. We'll continue to follow the story as it unfolds. However, we have spoken with the Ashcroft RCMP to see what is being done for speeding and the safety of our youth and community members who walk along those streets.
Thank you, Dana. Through Mayor and Council for both Cache Creek and Ashcroft, concern has been expressed that there is people not following the rules of the road. That includes speeding, that includes not stopping at stop signs. What we have done as the Ashcroft RCMP, which covers Ashcroft and Cache Creek area, is to increase our patrols of those areas, and the community has likely seen us out already. We do active traffic enforcement in those areas. We also have our partner agency, the BC Highways Patrol, which is based out of Ashcroft. We have a permanent BC Highways Patrol unit here. They have been very actively involved along the Highway 1 and 97 corridors, and whenever they are actively out there, we see a noted diminishment in the amount of traffic-related calls we receive from the public. And regarding those calls, thank you very much to everyone who has called in traffic-related calls. It is everyone's responsibility to ensure that the roads are safe for all users, cyclists, pedestrians, drivers. It is all of our responsibility to ensure we have a safe road that we can get from A and B to without having to be involved in an incident where we might be involved in a collision or a near miss. We don't want that in our community, and it is everyone's responsibility to ensure that that doesn't happen. Another issue that we have seen in the community is those passing through the community. As we are a highway corridor, we have a lot of commuters to and from holiday vacation homes from maybe the lower mainland to the interior, and that's where our partnership with BC Highways Patrol becomes so important. Educating those drivers who don't necessarily live in the community that are adding to the issue within our community. First of all, educating those drivers, and secondarily, enforcing against those drivers should the situation dictate that that be appropriate. So we are actively engaged with the drivers on the road. When we see issues, we stop them and we educate and enforce as necessary.
Cache Creek Village Council has also approved the request to install a wildlife display. Kat Chatham will be working on the display of wildlife photos and written information that will go along the corridor in the basement of the community hall. We spoke with Kat Catchin of the Cache Creek Visitor Center, and she'll be providing us with an inside look of the upcoming display tomorrow. But first, we hear from CAO Damien Couture about the display.
Yeah, so her idea is she's been working with the Kamloops Wildlife Park to get photos of animals and species that are native to the area, and then put a little bit of an informational blurb underneath it so that people hopefully will stop, look at the wall, see, hey, this is a neat animal. Oh, this is something that's in the area. And then there's a little bit of information on them. And they're all going to have an informational thing saying, if you want more information, well, reach out to the wildlife park because they're the experts.
It's National Public Works Week, and the village of Cache Creek will celebrate with a barbecue. The village council also approved to close the office at 1 p.m. on May 19th for the National Public Works Week. The staff will prepare and attend a barbecue in support and celebration of the public works staff. This is a combined celebration between Cache Creek, Ashcroft, and Clinton public works staff.
And now anytime that we're looking at new projects, we're trying to incorporate the other communities. Like if Ashcroft is doing something right, we want to be talking with them to see what it is. Or if they see that we're doing something a little different, they might want to see what successes we're having. So that's one part of it, is to kind of encourage that intercommunication between the three groups. But secondly, we feel that that's really important, specifically with public works. Regrettably, and it's the reason why I say regrettably is a lot of people don't show appreciation to the people that make it so that water runs in your tap and your toilets are able to flush. And I know that that sounds really basic, but that is a very, very complex process to be able to facilitate that for a whole community. And so firstly, I feel it's important to recognize that, but secondly, to promote the interconnectedness between the communities, because each community has very unique challenges to how they deliver those services. A water operator here in Cache Creek has a very, very different job than a water operator in Ashcroft or Clinton, just based on the chemistry of what they're dealing with and the facility that they use. So it's very good for them to be able to get together with their peers and kind of get the chance to talk about what they're doing, what they're excited about, that sort of thing, so that they can build those networks and kind of better foster the intercommunity spirit. Because there might be something that's being done in another community that makes a lot of sense for us that we just haven't thought of, and vice versa.
Thanks for watching Valley Watch, as we checked out what was happening in Cache Creek for the week of May 16th to the 20th of 2022. I'm your host, Dana Foster. This segment is brought to you by the support of Cactus and the Canadian government. Thank you for watching.